welcome to the second annual Jeans Film and Television Awards, also known as the JEANNIES. I am your host, Jean, but not only am I your host, I'm also the sole voter of the Jeannie Awards, and I am so excited to be bringing you guys these awards for the second year in a row, because just last year we started an honored tradition here on this channel to celebrate the very best of what television and film had to offer throughout the year. And this time around we get to dive into the best of the best in entertainment for 2023. I am so excited to go through all of the nominees, all of the categories, and yes, to reveal the winners of tonight. This has been something that I've been looking forward to all year, as many of you guys will know. So we have a lot of exciting things coming up in today's awards. Now, speaking of these categories, I have made a few changes from last year. Some of the favorites are still there, but we do have a couple of surprises in store, including 2 brand new categories that you guys voted for. Yes, you guys voted in a poll a few days back on my community post, and you said which new categories you guys wanted me to include for this year's Jeannie Awards. So we are going to be delving into all of the new categories for this year, and like I said, there are a ton of nominees way more than even last year, because I have no discipline because I'm a Libra. It's going to be an exciting night for sure, so get ready, get your popcorn out, get comfy and cozy, because tonight is the ball of the season. Now, before we dive into the categories themselves, I do have a small disclaimer to preface the video with, because as I mentioned, I am the sole voter of the Jeannie Awards. Like, this is not a democracy. Don't get it twisted, okay? And so in light of that, there are some shortcomings. You know, as prestigious and honored these awards are, they do have a couple of disadvantages. For instance, I didn't have a chance to check out all of the releases of 2023 despite my best efforts. So if there are any omissions here, perhaps it is the case that I just did not have the time to check it out, or I didn't have access to that specific project. Quite a few projects that I was very much looking forward to for 2023 are actually coming out in 2024 here in the UK. So films like The Color Purple, American Fiction, and Poor Things will unfortunately not have been considered for this year's Jeannie Awards because they aren't out yet here. So there's nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. So just keep that in mind, just in case there are some obvious omissions that you think should definitely be here. And also remember, this is all based off of my opinion. This is all, like I said, this is not a democracy. This is all based off of my opinion. So perhaps I did actually watch that project that you're thinking of, and I denied it a nomination. Like, that's also a possibility. But either way, one of the best parts of the Jeannie Awards isn't just me hosting, although I do try to do a good job, okay? But it's also you guys co-hosting alongside me. Whether you are joining as this video premieres on YouTube down in the live chat, or if you're commenting down below after the video has premiered, I would love to hear your thoughts on each of these categories, the nominees, who you think should win, will win. One of my favorite things about this channel is being able to engage with you guys from all over the world to discuss film and television, and the Jeannie Awards are a celebration of that. It's a celebration of our little community here on YouTube. And what better way to celebrate our community than to join in on the fun and show off all of your guesses and who you think should have won if you disagree with me in the comment section. So now, without further ado, let's not waste any time here, people. We have lots of categories to get through. Okay, so it's time for us to dive into the main event. Let's go through this year's nominees for the Jeannie Awards. So just as we did last year, we are going to be kicking off the 2023 Jeannie Awards with the first category being Best Animated Film or Television Series. And here the nominees are Elemental from Pixar Disney, Invincible Season 2 from Amazon Prime, Nimona from Netflix, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from Sony, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem from Paramount, Wish from Disney, and Young Love from Max. So this is a really exciting category for me. Many of you guys will know I love animation. I am a huge animation fan. I know some people think it's just like a kiddie genre, but first of all, animation is not a genre. Okay, it is a medium. But secondly, I think animation has this incredible power to tell amazing, timeless stories, whilst also stretching the limits of imagination that can be conveyed in live action. You can create entire worlds that you can just sink into using animation and different animation styles, as we've been increasingly seeing in the last few years. And that is just so exciting to me. And it's something that I've carried with me across my entire life. So I love celebrating animation, and I love the fact that this year we have gotten even more exciting animated projects to be nominated for these awards. So we're going to touch on a few of the nominees for each category, because otherwise this video is going to be 17 hours long, because you guys know I like to talk. And I do want to specifically highlight the projects that I haven't had a chance to review on my channel, and also some that I feel have been largely overlooked, because we will see that the latter unfortunately became quite a theme throughout 2023. And I think what better way to shine a spotlight on some of these overlooked projects than to feature them on the Jeannie Awards. Starting us off, we have the animated projects that I watched most recently with Nimona. Nimona is a brilliant, amazing Netflix animated film that came out earlier this year that is centered on the titular character Nimona, who is this wonderful, sassy, edgy, fun, exciting character who also has the ability to shapeshift. And essentially what you have here is this really brilliant and creative and imaginative allegory for a ton of different social issues. Through the characters of Nimona and Ballister, this film explores issues of self-identity and self-worth, also being rejected by society. And this is a feeling and a reality that is experienced by many real groups of people in our real lives. And Nimona gives voice to those issues using this fantastical tale that is set in this fairy tale land that's also super futuristic and sci-fi. It's a really cool mashup, and there's some brilliant world building in this film. And not to mention, the voice performances are amazing, particularly by Chloe Grace Moretz and Riz Ahmed. And then you have the phenomenal animation design, which to me was one of my favorites of the year. It's such a beautiful style of animation, certainly different to what we usually see from the larger animation houses like Disney, Pixar, and even DreamWorks. And I really enjoy this trend that we have been seeing in the last few years, which I call the Spider-Verse effect, where animation studios have realized that they don't have to have films that all look like Pixar or Disney. They can broaden their horizons and push the edge of the envelope when it comes to animation, and we have been reaping the rewards from that with films like Puss in Boots 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now Nimona. So next up on the list, speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, society owes a debt to these turtles. Okay, let me explain. You see, I was never a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. I don't think that will come as a surprise to you. Okay, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are for boys. No, but I'm kidding. I just never was interested in this comic book franchise. It's technically a comic book, right? But they're mostly known for the TV shows. Either way, it was never really my bag. But when I heard about all of the 5-star reviews for this latest animated film, I decided to check it out, and it was one of the greatest decisions that I made this year, because I loved this latest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Whoa, that is a mouthful. I absolutely loved it. I mean, speaking of the Spider-Verse effect for animation. We see yet another example of a stylistically unique animated film here. This time around, it doesn't look like it's trying to copy Spider-Verse, but instead it looks like a mishmash of like stop motion animation, claymation, hand-drawn animation. Like there's all of these different elements that just make it look so different and unique in the animation space. It's not as smooth and as perfect and shiny and adorable as some of the other animated films that we see from these other studios, and that's what really enamored me to it. And I think thematically it also works, considering that this is about the mutant turtle, the giant mutant turtles that live in the sewers. Okay, I think the style of animation fits perfectly for the brand as well. And speaking of the turtles themselves, guys, those turtles are my family. Those turtles are my family. I love those turtles like they were my own nephews. Yep, yes I do. I think the voice actors knocked it out of the park. They felt so authentic and real. They felt like real life preteens, and the way that they were just able to communicate with one another, you could hear the, I guess, vocal chemistry because it's not on-screen chemistry, but you could just hear the friendship that they were able to convey through their voice performances. And that is of course assisted heavily by the great script, but they were also allowed to improv a lot, which I think helps give that sense of authenticity to this iteration of these characters. And the last project to highlight would be Young Love. Young Love is actually a spin-off of the animated shorts from a few years back that was created by Matthew A. Cherry, and that ended up winning the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. But it was a brilliant mini film, and I was so happy to see it turn into a 12-episode series that landed on Max that was actually created by Sony Animation. So something is cooking over at Sony Animation, I must say. Okay, they're doing bits over there. Once again, great animated project, but this time around what I really want to emphasize is, first of all, you have, you know, this majority African American cast and characters, which is really great to see. Even across the board when it comes to these projects, we're seeing a lot more diversity in these animated projects, and that obviously makes me really happy, especially because they're so brilliantly done and their stories do these characters justice. But another highlight about Young Love is just how freaking funny it is. Young Love is actually hilarious. It's one of these shows that can be enjoyed by kids 100%. The main character is so adorable. She's so sweet with her little afro puffs, but we also get to the further exploration of her parents, who are these millennial parents. Her father is trying to be a musical producer and he's voiced by Kid Cudi, whilst her mother, voiced by Issa Rae, the queen herself, please, okay, Issa Rae voices this character, and she was previously sick with cancer, as we briefly saw in the Hair Love short, but this time around she has made a full recovery and she's just trying to pick up the pieces, you know, where she left off before she got sick. So the premise itself is so compelling and so wonderful, and then you add to the fact that the characters are incredible. Even the grandparents are hilarious. Honestly, the series is such a joy. It's so charming, and I'm so happy to see it be added to my animated projects roster. So guys, the first envelope of the night is here. We are about to find out who wins the Best Animated Film or TV Series Jeannie Award, the first award of the night. And so, without further ado, the award goes to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yes, of course. Was there ever any doubt? The real question is, do you know me or do you not? Because there was never any doubt that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse would win in this category, hands down. You guys know that I am the world's biggest fan of Miles Morales, okay? I have loved the Spider-Verse film since the first time I saw it in cinemas back in 2018, and I did my best of 2018 video on my channel, the very first video to land on YouTube, and I was wearing this exact same top. And I went on and on about how much I loved that first Spider-Verse film, and to see a mere 5 years later that Sony Animation was somehow able to make lightning strike twice with this incredible sequel was just such a joy. First of all, I've been talking about animation style. This is the GOAT, you know, this is the trendsetter. This franchise is the reason why these studios are shook and they're starting to try new things. You know, I fully believe that. But instead of Spider-Verse kind of resting on its laurels and looking back to what it already accomplished in the first film, which was already incredibly impressive, this time around they decided to one-up themselves. They decided to push the boundaries even further, explore even more different styles of art and animation to pack into this film. And that is brilliantly accompanied again with the themes and the story. The fact that it is a multiverse film, therefore allowing these animators to create different styles of animation for each pocket of the multiverse that is explored. I mean, you want to talk about the multiverse? Marvel listen, Marvel Studios has been trying to make the multiverse work for the last, what, 5 years or so, pretty much as long as Spider-Verse has existed, and they have been fumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Whereas here you have Miles Morales swinging through the multiverse and looking incredible as he does so, and honestly, hats off to him because he is more than deserving of this award. So now we've gotten started, now we're all warmed up, and it's time for the second category of the night, and this is a big one because here's the thing, I tried to make it a general rule to limit the number of nominees for each of these categories to like 8 to 10. Do you know, like, just make it a good 8 to 10, a nice round number, and it's like manageable, it's decent. You know, you can get behind 8 to 10 nominees per category. And then I stumbled across this one. And then I stumbled across this very category here, and all thoughts of logic, all thoughts of sense kind of left my mind, and I just went insane. But let's dive into this, shall we? And you shall see just how crazy things got. Because the next category up is Best Comedy Film or Television Series. And ooh, here the nominees are Abbott Elementary Season 2, Barbie, Beef, Blackberry, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Heartstopper Season 2, Lupin Season 3, Red, White and Royal Blue, Sex Education Season 4, Shrinking, Swarm, The Bear Season 2, They Cloned Tyrone, and Wonka. 15. 15. That's ridiculous, I know. That's ridiculous, I know. And honestly, heads up, that's not even the only category with 15 nominees. So strap in, like I said. But yeah, that, you know, that's crazy. Yeah, I know. I'll put my hands up and say that I messed up there. Something went drastically wrong. The Libra in me just jumped out and I couldn't decide who to get rid of. So they're all there. Well, actually, they're not even all there. There are more comedy films and TV shows that I wanted to include because it's just been such a huge year for comedy. But what's great about this selection is you have a huge variety of different styles of comedy. You don't just have the straight up, you know, comedy sitcoms like Abbott Elementary, although that is very few and far between these days. You also have a smattering of action comedies, for instance, like Lupin Season 3, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, although that also teeters on the edge of being a tragedy a lot of the time, and you will know how much of a emotional roller coaster I found it to be if you've watched my review. But then you also have some dramedies on here, and some are more heavy on the drama than others. For instance, you have Beef, Blackberry, and Heartstopper. Then you also have a sprinkling of Afro-surrealist comedy, and these are some of my favorite projects of the bunch because it's such a unique kind of category. Think Get Out or Atlanta, especially with the comedy side of things. These are the types of projects that are produced by Black filmmakers that kind of have these like surrealist elements to them whilst being centered on Black characters, and they tend to have underlying socio-political commentary that tends to be really intelligent and poignant. And the examples that we have here are They Clone Tyrone and Swarm. So like I said, we have a wide variety here, and this was one of the toughest categories that I had to judge because I like me a good laugh. Like I like me a good chuckle, you know, I like me a good ha ha he he. But when you elevate that, when you take it to a whole other level and you include social commentary, or you include good compelling drama, or a good biopic, a good story, compelling characters, then Jean is very happy. Jean is having a grand old time. Let me not refer to myself in the third person, but I am having a grand old time, which is why this ended up being one of my favorite genres of the entire year. But still, as much as I adored all of the projects here on this list, if I'm being honest, the real fight, the real thing that kept me up at night, that kept me tossing and turning, okay, were two projects from this year. And that was Barbie and the Bear, which actually sounds like a great show in itself. But Barbie and the Bear, I did not know what to do, because Barbie to me is such a brilliant comedy that does exactly what I love, which is inject some of that social commentary in there. It is a film about feminism. It does have a very poignant feminist message, even if its exploration of feminism is quite surface level. I just really loved that combination. The fact that Greta Gerwig went there and took one of the most iconic female icons of the 20th century and just kind of turned it into this feminist message that is relevant to today. It was just genius, truly. And on top of that, the execution of the film itself, the brilliant set design, production value, the costumes, the hair, the makeup, the world building, and of course the amazing performances at its center. Barbie was just a package that was custom made for me to enjoy, and I lapped it up. I was living my best life in that theater. I was laughing, I was crying, I was singing, I was dancing. It was an experience to behold, and you just had to be there, man. Honestly, at this point, you just had to be there. You just had to be there on the 22nd of July. Do you know what I mean? So how can I go against Barbie? There's nothing that can turn me against Barbie, except for my Chicago family. And therein lies the issue, because my Chicago family is my kin. They're my family. The Bear is the Bear. And if you've watched my review of The Bear season 2, you know how much and how deeply I feel about this show. So what to do? Well, we're about to find out what I did, because I'm about to announce the winner for the award for Best Comedy Film or Television Series. Okay, and the award goes to The Bear Season 2. Yes, huge congratulations to The Bear Season 2. As much as I had an array of emotions, of thoughts, of feelings coming out of Barbie, there was nothing that had me quite as captivated and stuck to my seat like the second season of that goddamn Chicago show. First of all, my Chicago family, they're untouchable. Please. My Chicago family are untouchable, so I'm always going to root for them. I am ride or die for them. Even though they're messed up, even though they're dysfunctional, even though like there's no hope, I'm still ride or die for my Chicago family. So that's one. Number two, some of the episodes in this season were some of the best episodes of television ever. Period, actually. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Christmas episode. The first time watching that Christmas episode, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to think or feel. There were so many unexpected turns during that episode. It was a roller coaster of emotions, as I said before, and it was, again, another experience that you just had to be there for the first time. The entirety of this series just had me hooked from start to finish, and this is yet another example of a series or a project that had an amazing first installment, and you wonder, how could they top this? How could they repeat that success? And somehow with this second season, not only did The Bear manage to meet expectations, but oh my goodness, did it exceed it. Okay guys, so I'm getting even more excited as we go through these categories, and the third one up is a big one because we're starting to dive into the pretty faces. Yes we are. We're starting to dive into the talent in front of the camera with our first acting category, and that is Best Supporting Actress in a Film or Television Series. And here the nominees are Asia Naomi King for Lessons in Chemistry, America Ferrera for Barbie, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown Season 6, Jessica Williams for Shrinking, Leslie Manville for The Crown Season 6, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Olivia Washington for I'm a Virgo, Shira Haas for Bodies, and Teyona Paris for They Cloned Tyrone. Okay, so I would say this is a pretty good list of some of the best performances from supporting actresses of the year. Now, the first thing that I want to address is probably the first thing that came to mind when you saw this list, and that is the Lily Gladstone of it all. Because yes, she is featured in my best supporting category. And the reason is just off of my own personal judgment, not consulting any other awards bodies, okay? Not that I have to, because it's my show, it's not a democracy. But I just feel like in light of her role in Killers of the Flower Moon, I can't really call that a lead role. I just think that she's far too absent from the film, especially in the second half, for her to be considered a lead. I think Leo DiCaprio is pretty much the sole lead of that film, and she's a strong supporting, but considering we have other comparators like Kerry Mulligan, for instance, in Maestro, who I would say is definitely a co-lead in that instance, here I just don't think it would be fair and it would make sense for Lily Gladstone to be classed as a lead actress in this film, especially because we are comparing this alongside some television series. And in TV shows, it's much easier to tell who's the lead because they're in pretty much every single episode, right? They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And when you compare Lily Gladstone's performance in Killers versus a lead actor in a TV series, you can see where I struggle to kind of make that fit. But in terms of some of these other brilliant performances, I mean, we have America Ferrera here from Barbie, who has been ignored by some of these other awards bodies, but that won't go down in this household, okay? Because I thought she was absolutely brilliant. I think a reason why her performance may be overlooked is because it is a more comedic performance, but first of all, she delivers the comedy very, very well. I mean, she's a comedy pro, right? From shows like Ugly Betty and Superstore, so that's no huge surprise. But also because it's her character that provides the sort of human perspective into Barbie Land, and also this character is important in embodying a lot of the messaging, the feminist messaging of this film. And another performance that I really wanted to highlight is one that I've talked about more recently, and that is that of Divine Joy Randolph, who is in The Holdovers. She plays this disgruntled lunch lady who works in this prestigious boys boarding school for the sons of the wealthy in the area. I think it's in like Colorado or something. And this whole film is set in the 80s as well, so it has a very warm, cozy, and sort of nostalgic vibe. But her character is going through a lot during the events of the film because her son recently passed away, and she had been working so hard to enable him to attend the school despite them not coming from the same class as the other students, and he was able to carve out a life for himself as a result of that. But unfortunately that life was cut short, and she has to, you know, face that pain and that agony of having lost her child whilst also taking care of other people's children during what can be one of the most depressing times of the year if you have a lot going on, and that is the holidays. So this character is facing a lot of these issues just compound into a big ball of pain and suffering for this character, but she still manages to be this really brilliant kind of maternal figure at times, and also just a sounding board to bounce off of the madness that is Paul Giamatti's classics teacher character. And then she even develops this, you know, friendship and this kind of bond with one of the kids that's supposed to stay, you know, the holdover that's supposed to stay over the holidays, which is really touching because it feels like he's somewhat of a temporary, to some extent, son surrogate for her in light of everything that she's been through. So whilst the character itself is very well written, I think Divine Joy Randolph's performance actually elevates it several steps further. And she makes it so much more of a complex performance, even if it is very understated and quieter than some of these other performances featured on this list. Okay guys, so the time has come. Let's not waste a single second. It's time to reveal who has won the Jeannie Award for Best Supporting Actress in a Film or Television Series. And the winner is Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. Woo! Lily Gladstone was absolutely brilliant in that film. I mentioned in my review how I was in awe of the quiet regality that she held, particularly in the first half of the film, as she was allowed to just be herself and exist in her space. But then, unfortunately, that space was invaded. That space was colonized by this crazy white man. This crazy white man played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who was boneless, he was a traitor, he was miserable, he was ugly, he was filthy. Okay? And once again, he was a traitor. He was an absolute traitor, filth, scum of the earth, this man was. And slowly but surely he started to eat at her, he started to pick at her, and yes, she was suffering from her own illnesses. She had diabetes, and during the early 20th century that was likely a death sentence, but her husband represented an even worse kind of illness, an even worse kind of disease. This man that was eating away at her, trying to steal her fortune, and was so greedy and money hungry that he would do whatever it took to get his hands on that money, including destroying her entire family, or at least enabling his uncle to do so. But he was still dumb enough, he was still delusional enough to believe that everything that he was doing was coming from a place of love. Oh, that man. But in the meantime, just to highlight Lily Gladstone's brilliant performance in this film, again, that quiet regality that kind of dissipates throughout the runtime as she gets sicker and sicker and more betrayed by the man that she loves. She played all levels of this character brilliantly, and so even though I don't think it's a lead performance technically in my book, I still think it's one of the brightest performances of the year by far. So next up, it's time for the lads. Next up, it's time to discuss Best Supporting Actor in a Film or Television Series. And here, the nominees are Charles Melton for May December, Eben Moss-Backrack for The Bear Season 2, George Mackay for Femme, Jamie Foxx for They Cloned Tyrone, Matthew McFadden for Succession Season 4, Kuti Gatwa for Sex Education Season 4, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Tiu Yu for Past Lives, and Tyler James Williams for Abbott Elementary Season 2. So once again, we have an array of incredible performances by these actors in a huge variety of projects, mind you. And this is what I love about the Jeannie Awards, is because I actually do my homework. I actually do my homework, unlike some, okay, in the industry, and I watch a bunch of different stuff. You know, I'm happy to check out something fun, something interesting, so long as it's good quality stuff. More on that later. Okay, sometimes I lose, but anywho, when I win big, and so I don't discriminate against any genres, unless it's horror, because I don't have the backbone, okay? And when I spot brilliant performances, I like to highlight them, even if the project itself isn't my favorite. So we have a nice variety here, and that makes me really excited. This is what I want to see more of across the industry. But in the meantime, I guess I'm just going to have to continue being the trendsetter. First performance that I wanted to highlight is that of George Mackay from Femme. Now, some of you guys will know that I'm a big George Mackay fan, especially after seeing 1917. I love that film. I love that film, and it killed me to see him get so little recognition for his incredible performance, because he was a large part of why that film worked. Like, let's not forget. Well, at least a lot of people did forget, unfortunately, but I didn't. Not me, okay? And so I'm always on the lookout for his latest projects, and that's how I stumbled across Femme, this indie British film that is centered on this drag queen called Jules, who is portrayed by Nathan Stewart's Jarrett. And Jules is just hanging out, living her best life on the stage. And after a gig, she, has a cigarette outside and notices that this guy, this gangster, dodgy looking guy, is taking an interest in her. Now she just heads off to the shops and is minding her goddamn business. But it turns out this guy has a group of thug friends, okay, these yobs, that he's joined by, and all of a sudden, obviously, things switch up, right? Because all of a sudden, he's acting like a tough man. He's acting like, yo, real masculine, trying to disguise the fact that he was taking an interest in Jules mere moments ago. And Jules, being the confident drag queen that she is, decides to point this out. But unfortunately, this ends in catastrophe as Jules is attacked on the street by this guy and his friends, and it leads to them getting, injured and really badly hurt, and not just physically but also emotionally and mentally. And it takes forever for them to get back on stage after that. But in the meantime, as Jules is simmering with anger, they want to find a way to get their revenge on this guy. And it turns out this guy is George Mackay's Preston, okay, who is suffering from an intense amount of internalized homophobia, okay, as he is seeped into this world of gang violence and trying to uphold this masculine image that doesn't really align with who he truly is deep down. But does that mean that people like Jules should suffer in the meantime as he figures things out? Absolutely not. And so Jules pursues an ill-advised relationship with Preston to get back at him, to try and do some revenge porn situation. Except somewhere along the line, this relationship becomes far more complicated than any of them anticipated. And so, yeah, thus we have the birth and, spoiler alert, the death of a very interesting couple. But in terms of George Mackay's performance, I mean, he is playing that typical, I think it's like East London or South London gangster. He's a thug. He has the accent down pat, and good for him, because I know these things because I'm a Londoner, you see, even though I'm from North Central. But anywho's, I commend him for his accent work and his behavior. His mannerisms were perfect, but he was also able to convey that other side, the duality of this character, who deep down doesn't want to be that guy all the time. And slowly but surely, as he gets deeper into this fake relationship, unbeknownst to him, he starts to shed away some of the layers of bravado in his persona and starts to reveal more of his true self to Jules, but at what cost? Another brilliant performance that I wanted to highlight is that of Tu, who is from Past Lives, and he portrays Hae Sung, who is the South Korean young boy who has this massive crush on Nora, portrayed by Greta Lee, and he grows up still having a thing for Nora. He still thinks about her as he gets older, even though she moves from South Korea by the age of 12, I think, and she moves on over to the Americas, where she lives in Canada for a bit and then moves over to the States to study and become a writer. But they rediscover each other after many, many years through social media, where they establish a reconnection and things are going very well. But then life gets in the way, and it keeps freaking getting in the way. Life keeps getting in the way of these two being together, and it's just the most frustrating thing. It's the most frustrating thing to watch, because I'm like, none of this is on my vision board. Just let Hae and Nora be together. I don't understand why it can't work out, okay? But I have to say, even though I really enjoyed Greta Lee's performance in this film, what really stood out to me was the performance of Tu, because he has to portray a character that doesn't fully change or grow up at the same rate that Nora does. high kind of stays a little bit more stagnant just because of the nature of, you know, the society that he lives in, the kind of job that he gets when he's older, and his aspirations. He doesn't have these wild, sexy aspirations like Nora does of being this acclaimed writer. You know, he's just working in finance or something. And so his existence in South Korea isn't nearly as glamorous as that as Nora's seems to be, at least through their video chats. But I just think that Yu was so great at portraying this like really endearing and relatable character that was just holding out a candle for Nora. He still had feelings for her, but he had kind of come to terms with the fact that it may not ever work out between them, and that all comes to a head when he finally, you know, sees her in person for the first time in many years during his visit to New York. And he spends an evening at this bar with Nora and her husband and her husband, who's there for some reason. He really needs to get lost, and I think at one point he kind of does get lost, or maybe the camera just like loses focus on him and tells him to get lost subliminally. But that scene spoke volumes to me. Like, it was so clear. It was so clear, and it's a scene that is set up at the very beginning of the film, so it's just like perfectly bookended, but again, not with the result that you would want or expect. And the last performance to highlight is that of Charles Melton, who was absolutely brilliant in May December, and was in fact my favorite part of that entire film. I had issues with May December. I felt like the tones were a bit mishmashed and didn't quite work. I didn't love the melodramatic music that felt very soap opera-y, and this kind of clash of comedy that's not particularly well done in my opinion versus this very serious issue of predatory behavior and PDF files. Okay, I didn't really love the mishmash of those tones considering the subject matter, and I don't think it was executed perfectly. But aside from my opinions on May December overall, I have to say without question that Charles Melton's performance in this film was the standout for me. I think he was so brilliant at portraying what I recently referred to as this kid dad, this very oxymoronic character who is essentially a child, you know, in an adult's body, and you know that's reflected in how he's constantly hunched over trying to make himself small because it feels like he's not fully grown into his body and become the adult that he appears to be, and he was forced to grow up far quicker than he should have because of this predatory relationship that he had with Gracie. And throughout the film you see the emotional turmoil that he experiences as he comes to certain realizations about the nature of his relationship with his wife, and this is exacerbated by the fact that their twins are graduating high school, and so he feels like this is all too soon. It's insane. Like, how can a father of his age already have kids that are graduating high school? How does that work? Well, it's because of the crazy relationship that he has with his wife. And so seeing him go through all of those reflections is just really heartbreaking. And also the fact that he isn't able to verbalize his thoughts and feelings because he has been suppressed and oppressed for so long in this relationship is incredibly heartbreaking. I mean, Charles Melton, Charles, now I'm reconsidering some things myself, because Charles Melton in May December was actually a scene stealer. Like, he was he's what made that film. I don't know why Todd Haynes decided to make this a kind of quasi half-hearted comedy, because it wasn't particularly funny, but also it did a disservice to the seriousness, the heaviness of the subject matter. But if they just allowed it to be a drama and have Charles Melton at the center of it, I mean, we could have been talking best lead, actually, you know, in all seriousness. But as it stands, again, one of the best performances of the year, hands down. Okay guys, so as you can see, not only is creating this list of nominees quite difficult, but choosing a winner is even more so. But I do have my winner here for the category of Best Supporting Actor in a Film or Television Series. And the award goes to Ryan Gosling for Barbie. Yes, give it up for Ken. He finally emerged the winner. And honestly, I say finally, but in reality, he was the winner the second that the credits rolled for that film, because as many have said, he was quite the scene stealer. Ken ended up on top when it came to Barbie. Despite its feminist messaging, it did a huge service to this male character. But on top of the brilliant writing for Ken that actually gave him a pretty compelling emotional arc for the story, you also had Ryan Gosling's amazing performance, where he just fully committed to being the ultimate himbo. To being the ultimate lovable dum-dum himbo that we all came to love throughout the entirety of 2023. And it's crazy to think that months and even weeks leading up to the release of Barbie, people were saying that Ryan Gosling was the worst choice for Ken, that he wasn't pretty enough, that he wasn't young enough, etc. and so forth. But whilst we've seen Ryan Gosling kill it in other comedic performances like in Crazy Stupid Love and in The Nice Guys, here he stepped it up a notch completely and gave us one of the most iconic characters of the year. We absolutely fell in love with Ken, even when he was being a doofus, even when he was being an absolute idiot and the personification of everything wrong with patriarchy, kind of, in a very surface level way. But anywho, even then, even through all of that, he was such a compelling character. He was so hilarious, and Ryan Gosling delivered on all of those comedic beats with such charm and, again, such authenticity for this character, because he fully committed even during the press tour. And on top of all of that, the song. Listen, I'm just, Ken is a bop. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, although apparently they're releasing various versions of this song, which I think is overkill just a little bit, but the original is a bop, I can't lie. Okay guys, so how are we doing? I hope we're still cozy, I hope we're still comfy. Maybe it's time to top up your drinks and snacks. Next category up, love is in the air, because we are going to be diving into one of my very favorite categories of all of the Jeannie Awards. We are going to dive into some mess, we're going to dive into some drama, and we're going to be diving into some romance with this next one. It is, of course, the best romantic chemistry in a film or television series. And here the nominees are Ariel and Prince Eric from The Little Mermaid, Bill and Frank from The Last of Us, Charlotte and George from Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story, Janine and Gregory for Abbott Elementary Season 2, Jasper and Wylan for Shadow and Bone Season 2, Jules and Preston for Femme, Kaz and Inej for Shadow and Bone Season 2, Marie and Jordan for Gen V, Nick and Charlie for Heartstopper Season 2, Prince Henry and Alex for Red, White and Royal Blue, Sydney and Kami for The Bear Season 2, and Yaz and Dom for Rye Lane. So these are our couples from 2023. How did I do? Do you think I did a good job? I think I did a pretty good job. We have a great variety here of couples. Some of them haven't gotten together yet, and in fact refuse to do so, as is the case for Sydney and Kami in The Bear, or Janine and Gregory in Abbott Elementary. And then you have some couples that are just like happily in love, like they're just the best couples ever, like Nick and Charlie, who have been nominated here for a second time in a row. And then you just have couples that like should actually never be together. They are the Louis and the Stats of this year, and that honor, or shall I say dishonor, goes to Jules and Preston from Femme. But if you really want to talk about incredible love stories from 2023, we need to discuss Bill and Frank from The Last of Us. I mean, their episode, the episode focusing on their love story, that took place in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, mind you, that little corner of this zombie apocalypse that was filled with so much love and had that incredibly painful, bittersweet ending, that made for one of the best episodes of television ever broadcasted. Truly, it was immaculately done. The performances were phenomenal, and the on-screen chemistry was just a light. It was electric. But it was a different kind of love story, like I say, because it was set in a zombie apocalypse. Okay, but it kind of gave us this breather from the rest of the disaster that was going on in the world of The Last of Us, because whilst we thought that it was going to end similarly to the rest of the episodes of The Last of Us, we kind of got this little safe haven with Bill and Frank instead. Now, speaking of bittersweet love stories, we also have to throw in Queen Charlotte and King George. You want to talk about a roller coaster? God damn. This love story had it all, actually. First of all, it had the enemies to lovers storyline. Okay, listen, the enemies to lovers story. What can I say? I'm a sucker for a good enemies to lovers storyline. I absolutely love that. They had electric on-screen chemistry from the second that they appeared together. And honestly, that's just a Bridgerton staple at this point, because those of you who watched last year's Jeannie Awards will remember that last year's winners in this category were none other than Kate and Anthony from Bridgerton season 2. So that's Shonda Rhimes. Like, that's Shonda. Shonda knows what she's... I mean, please. And honestly, we shouldn't be surprised, because this is the same woman behind Scandal. So, like, she knows how to do on-screen chemistry, okay? But I think what makes this one stand out was just how tragic it was as well, because it turns out that George was keeping a secret from Charlotte, and that was that he was suffering from mental illness. It was a sort of reflection of the real-life King George in British history. And so you see how much suffering he goes through trying to hide this aspect of his life, and also the horrible treatments that he had to endure from that quack doctor who was torturing him, trying to torture away the mental illness, because they knew no better during the 18th century. So that was so heartbreaking, but it was incredible to see Charlotte kind of stand up for her husband and try to defend him and protect him. And, you know, it doesn't have a perfect happily ever after where he magically gets better or anything. You know, he continues to have these problems, and they become worse as he ages. But when we have those flash forwards, we see how rich their love still is. Ultimately, this category did come down to two specific couples that kept me up at night. Again, tossing, turning. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't think, I can't work. I needed to figure out who was going to win in this category, and it was driving me insane. And it was between these two. Okay, it was between these two couples, and that is Sydney and Carmi. For those of you who have watched my The Bear Season 2 review will already know how I feel about this. I have a vision board. I know what needs to happen between these two. I know what needs to happen. The writers seem to disagree with me, and some parts of the internet also seem to disagree with me. Most of you guys seem to be on the same page as me, which I love. But even some of you guys disagree, and I'm like, listen, we can respectfully disagree with each other, but either way, I need to get the happily ever after that I want. The other couple was Prince Henry and Alex from Red, White and Royal Blue. This actually was the perfect rom-com. Yeah, I'm gonna say it, okay? It was, of course, featured in the Best Comedy category as the sole straight-up rom-com, and one of the best that we have had in recent years, honestly. Like, people want to talk about comedy being back with no hard feelings. No, the rom-com was back with Red, White and Royal Blue, because it was perfectly executed. It had the staple elements of a beloved rom-com from the early 2000s, but this time modernized. It's made even cheekier, even more fun, and also even more sexy. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this couple actually had incredible sexual chemistry, which is missing from a lot of these other couples, and I think that's what set them apart as well. But if you want to talk about brilliant on-screen chemistry, you cannot leave out Nicholas Gilligan and Taylor Zakar Perez, and they play Prince Henry, who is a British prince from the royal family, and Alex, who is the son of the American president. And initially, guys, listen, initially they hate each other. You already know where I'm going with this. An enemies to lovers storyline. Oh my god. I go weak in the knees. I don't know what to tell you. This is literally my weakness. Like, this is my kryptonite. An enemies to lovers storyline. When I saw that, I was like, oh, it's over. This is already the best thing that's ever happened to me. So you have these two leads that have incredible chemistry together, even when they hate each other, even when they're not even getting along. And then you have the enemies to lovers storyline. Like, we're getting Kate and Anthony vibes all over again. But then there's that added element of it being a rom-com, which is actually funny. That scene where they were together, and then one of the, I think, PR managers for Alex, well, actually for Alex's mum, who's portrayed by Uma Thurman, by the way, she walks in on them in their hotel room, and it's one of the funniest scenes that I have seen in years, literally years. But the film is hilarious because it's a brilliant example of a modern rom-com. But then you also have these heartfelt moments between the two, especially surrounding, Alex feeling like he's falling short of the responsibilities and reputation that he should have as the son of the US president, Uma Thurman. But then you also have Prince Henry, who's experiencing his own turmoil, being this gay prince, and he is struggling with coming out, and they have to keep their relationship a secret for that reason. And even though this kind of storyline is kind of played out and antiquated, like we've seen it before, and we should kind of move on from it, I do think that it's done justice because it actually presents Henry as a well-rounded character, and it also helps strengthen the bond between the two because Alex obviously feels for Henry and realizes that the perfect life that he leads as a prince isn't all that it seems. And so we are about to find out who ultimately won this incredibly prestigious award for Best Romantic Chemistry in a Film or Television Series. The award goes to Prince Henry and Alex from Red, White and Royal Blue. It was a tough one, guys, because you guys know how invested I am in Sydney and Carmi from The Bear. But listen, until they actually pattern up, until they actually get together, until I see a kiss or something, or an acknowledgement, something, give me something to work with, they will continue to be runners up and not winners because I'm tired of being played around, especially when I have such excellent content like Red, White and Royal Blue to fall on. Okay, so next category up, we're diving back into the best performances of the year, and things are about to get serious. Things are actually about to get controversial because next up we've got Best Actress in a Film or Television Series. And here the nominees are Ali Wong for Beef, Ayo Edebiri for The Bear Season 2, Bella Ramsey for The Last of Us, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, Dominique Fishback for Swarm, Halle Bailey for The Little Mermaid, India Ria Amatifio for Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story, Margot Robbie for Barbie, Quinta Brunson for Abbott Elementary, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Sarah Snook for Succession Season 4, and Teyana Taylor for 1001. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is a really tough one, but I am pretty sure with my choice. I think some of you guys might disagree. I think a lot of you guys will be shocked, but we shall see. In terms of the performances that I'd like to highlight, where do I even begin? I mean, Halle Bailey was just perfect. Absolutely perfect as the live action Little Mermaid. I genuinely think she created magic with that role, and I hate how people weren't able to see past the color of her skin to acknowledge how incredible her performance was in that film, to bring to life this classic Disney character and give her a whole new meaning, a whole new identity, and really intensify those themes that were explored in the animated film is no small feat. And also whilst, having a very limited vocal performance, other than singing, and not to mention also having to like swim. Also having to work out those ab muscles and swim for the life of her throughout the entirety of that shoot. I mean, sis had to work hard. Okay, sis had to work hard, and she absolutely nailed it and looked flawless whilst doing so. But then next we have Carey Mulligan in Maestro, and I was actually unexpectedly floored by her performance in this film. This film overall kind of, shook me up just a little bit because those of you who have watched my Napoleon review will know that I made certain assumptions. I made certain presumptions when it came to Maestro. I lumped it together with the likes of Oppenheimer and Ferrari and said that these films weren't really necessary anymore. We needed to move on from that as a society. And I still stand by this. I still stand by this. But I have to say, when it comes to this kind of film, this kind of biopic about an important white man in history who cheated on his wife, if you're gonna do it, at least do it kind of like this. Because unexpectedly, this film didn't turn out to just be about Leonard Bernstein's professional career as a composer and a conductor and a teacher with music, but it was mostly centered on his relationship with his wife and his infidelities and the unique nature of their relationship, as he was, pretty known to be a queer man. And so the script that was penned by Bradley Cooper, the star, gives ample opportunity for Carey Mulligan to really shine and really hold her own. She has a lot of screen time in this film, and it's not just wasted. Her character goes through all of these different iterations and emotions as her relationship with Leonard kind of matures over time. And at the beginning, we see a somewhat naive and in denial version of Felicia, who embarks on this journey of, marriage and a romantic relationship with Leonard, thinking that, there are certain things that she can do without. She doesn't need all of Leonard's attention. She doesn't need Leonard to be there all the time. She doesn't even need him to be wholly committed to their marriage. She can do without. It's other women that worry about that sort of thing, not her, not Felicia. But then as time goes on, she starts to realize that maybe she was in denial and maybe she was lying to herself just a little bit. But then we get further complications as life tends to bring us, and the nature of their relationship changes once again. So it really is a journey across several decades exploring the relationship of the Bernsteins, and it ended up being so much more emotionally impactful than I expected it to be. And like I said, if you are gonna do a film in this genre that I'm tired of personally, at least tell a story like this that has so much more emotional depth and impact, and had performances that literally left me flabbergasted, actually. And one of those performances was certainly Carey Mulligan's. And speaking of being left flabbergasted, that's exactly how I felt when I watched Teyana Taylor in 1001. This unexpected masterpiece of a film that went wholly underrated. This film absolutely left me floored, especially because of a major twist that takes place in the third act that literally just kind of blew my mind. That literally blew my mind and gave me a ton of trust issues. Now here we have Teyana Taylor portraying Inez, who is this young woman living in the 1980s to early 90s, I believe. And she's actually fresh out of prison and she lives in New York. And so as soon as she's released, she starts roaming the streets looking for her son, who was taken in by the care system. And she actually kidnaps her son from his foster care parents, who are treating him poorly, or at least according to what she can see. And so she has to figure out a way to be a single mother who is fresh out of prison and who is struggling financially and in all sorts of ways, doesn't really have a permanent address. All of these problems are compounding against her. But the one thought that she has is that maybe she can try again with her son, try to raise him the way that she wants to, and, try to build a better life for him. And so we follow her on her journey of motherhood across the decades leading up to the I think like late 2000s. But just when you think you know what this film is about, there's a massive twist that just turns everything around and on its head, and it just kind of blows your mind, and oh my goodness. But what I will say about Teyana Taylor's performance is that she, once again, is note perfect. You know, the singer-songwriter turned actress delivers an incredible performance here. Very understated but super authentic. Her character feels real as hell. But this film just has so many layers to it, and at its center it has this really complex character that isn't wholly likable, but she is clearly trying to do her best by her son. And just when you think you've got her figured out, think again. But in the meantime, the time has come to reveal who will be honored with the award for Best Actress in a Film or Television Series. And the award goes to Dominique Fishback for Swarm. Okay, so Swarm, unfortunately, is a series I didn't have time to cover on my channel earlier this year, but I only checked it out a couple of months ago. And you want to talk about unexpected. You want to talk about unexpected. You want to talk about twists and turns. You want to talk about not knowing where things are going. Swarm is all of that and more. That series is wild. That series is crazy. Oh, we don't have time to dive into it today. But what I do need to dive into is Dominique Fishback's performance as Dre. Because despite what the name may suggest, don't get it twisted, this is not just one character. This is at least 10. This is at least 10 people encaptured in one person. And Dominique Fishback is able to bounce across all of these 10 plus performances. It's a masterclass, truly. And the fact that she's being overlooked again by other institutions is criminal, actually, just as criminal as her character. Just as criminal as her character. I do not want to reveal too much about Swarm if you haven't seen that incredible limited series, but it's essentially an indictment of stan culture, and in particular a certain kind of fan of a certain kind of star. Swarm, bees, the connection can be made. But it is a brilliant series, like I said, that has that Afro-surrealism that we've come to see from Donald Glover's other work like Atlanta, and he is one of the co-creators here as well. But essentially you are still telling the story of this one character called Dre, or is that her name? This one character who starts off in one place and ends up in Timbuktu. I don't know what else to tell you without revealing the whole thing. But what really floored me about Dominique Fishback's performance here is her versatility and the fact that she just disappeared into this role. This deranged, crazy character that's so complex and so multifaceted was just perfectly portrayed by her. And so when I think of some of the best performances of the year, I have to tip my hat off to her, because in reality, even though this was just one project, she was really playing, like I said, 10 plus characters, and she nailed each and every one of them. Okay guys, so next up, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm feeling a little bit more somber as we approach this next category. Because this was, I keep saying that all of these categories were really hard. This was the hardest. Well, okay, this was the most difficult. This was the most difficult. As I'm sitting here, I'm still trying to make up my mind. Even though the envelope has been, written, like I've got the card on hand, but I don't know. Oh, this is, okay, well, let's just rip the band-aid off. The show must go on. It's time to dive into Best Actor in a Film or Television Series. And here the nominees are Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Corey Miltrist for Queen Charlotte: A Bridgerton Story, Glenn Howerton for Blackberry, Jeremy Allen White for The Bear, Jarrell Jerome for I'm a Virgo, John Boyega for They Cloned Tyrone, Kieran Culkin for Succession Season 4, Omar Sy for Lupin Season 3, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us, Stephen Yeun for Beef, and Tom Hiddleston for Loki Season 2. So there are 14 nominees here. Again, I went a bit mad. I went a bit mad with the nominees list. Okay, but I literally just could not choose. But 14 deserving nominees, all giving brilliant performances, very varied performances as well throughout the year. And I wish I had the strength or energy to even dive into a few of them on this list. But I can't because there's only two. There's only two that I am just like torturing myself over. And the two nominees that have me wringing my hands like so, guess them if you can, but it's Cillian Murphy and Bradley Cooper. Oh! Listen. If you guys know anything about me, okay, if you guys know anything about little old Jean, then you will know that I am the world's biggest Cillian Murphy fan, period. Absolutely. Like, don't even, please, don't even try to argue me on this point, because I absolutely loved him on Peaky Blinders, as I discussed in my Peaky Blinders Season 6 review. So much so that he ended up being the first recipient for the Jeannie Award for Best Actor in a Film or Television Series. Yeah. So, like, it's on record, okay? He's already a Jeannie Award winner. And I said in that award that I anticipated that he would be a 2-time Jeannie Award winner, the very first, okay? Because of his upcoming film, Oppenheimer. Because I knew that this guy would kill it. Like, there was never any doubt that he would eat up that role, because that's what he does, because he's a talented actor. And lo and behold, I was correct. Lo and behold, he was absolutely phenomenal in Oppenheimer. And I've already discussed my thoughts on Oppenheimer ad nauseum at this point. But one thing I've never wavered on is that Cillian Murphy's performance is the best part of that film, in my opinion. So here I was thinking that he was a lock, right? Like, here I was thinking, it's a done deal, done and dusted, 2-time Jeannie Award winner. Here you go, Mr. Murphy. Until I stumbled into the cinema to watch Maestro, and everything just changed. And I was so reluctant to allow this to happen, guys. But I had to open my heart to these other performances, because if I'm going to be a voter on the Jeannie Awards, I need to give everyone a chance, not just actors that I have a crush on. So I opened up my heart to Bradley Cooper's Leonard Bernstein, and I found myself, like I said, floored by his performance. Because even though this is clearly a vanity project, even though Bradley Cooper is always the bridesmaid and never the bride when it comes to winning an Academy Award, and this was supposed to change that, and even though lately he's been having all of these interviews during awards season where he's come off as a little bit pretentious and unlikable, even still, I have to tip my hat off. I have to give credit where credit is due, because his performance in Maestro, I mean, I've said this phrase several times now, but it still applies, is note perfect. Bradley Cooper disappeared into that role. And as I mentioned in a recent video, everything that Cillian Murphy accomplished in Oppenheimer, Bradley Cooper does as well, but even more intensely because of the nature of Leonard Bernstein's character, at least as he's presented in this film. You have someone who is just so larger than life. He has this energy when he walks into every room where he sucks out the oxygen, and he makes everything about himself. And that's one of the issues that he faces in his marriage to Felicia. And at first she thinks that she can live like this, but it becomes apparent that she can't later down the line. And you should hate his character for it. And there are times when you do. There are times when you hate this character so much because of the way that he's treating his family, and in particular his wife, because of this uneasy relationship and arrangement that they have within their marriage, where his wife doesn't want to stop him from being who he really is as this queer man in the mid 20th century. But at the same time, she's not thriving. In fact, she's suffering in many ways from this arrangement that she agreed to when she was younger and far more naive. But then there are times when you just adore him because you're able to see him express himself using his considerable gifts and talents with music, with teaching, and especially with conducting. And listen, I'll be the first to hold my hands up because I made fun of Bradley Cooper in my Napoleon review, because he was going around saying like, oh, I was learning how to conduct for 6 years, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whatever, like this is award season talk that we've heard time and time again, year after year. And in fact, his fellow contender, Cillian Murphy, had also mentioned how he learned how to speak Dutch so that he can deliver a speech during Oppenheimer. And when I watched Oppenheimer, I was like, oh, is this the speech that he was... Like, all due respect, because again, like this is top 2 here, all due respect, but when I watched Oppenheimer, I was like, is this the speech that he was talking about? Because it's literally a second long and I barely even noticed that he was talking another language. So like, I'm not a Dutch speaker, but I was like, okay, he did that, good for him. But I should have taken Bradley Cooper seriously when he was harping on about learning how to conduct, because that conducting sequence in Maestro actually brought a tear to my eye. I sound like such a crazy person, but watching Bradley Cooper's Leonard Bernstein conduct in that sequence that takes place in this like church during this concert, this opera, it was an incredible scene, and he absolutely disappeared into the character, and he did not need the prosthetics and the hair and the makeup, even though much ado was made about all of that, because in the end it was in his body language, it was in the sweat, it was in the blood, sweat and tears, okay, it was in everything about his mannerisms and his body language and his persona that came out to embody Leonard Bernstein. And if there was ever any doubt, the film confirms this by showing actual footage of Leonard Bernstein conducting, and it's just like a mirror image. It's incredible. But with all of that being said, it's time now to reveal who the winner is of Best Actor in a Film or Television Series. And the award goes to Bradley Cooper! Oh, yeah, it goes to Bradley Cooper. I have to be honest. I wish I can make it a tie. I feel like such a traitor. As the world's biggest Cillian Murphy fan, I feel like such a traitor. But hats off to Mr. Cooper. And not to mention, he also delivered one of the best vocal performances of the year with Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So like, maybe that was a sign. Okay, so next up, you can finally release the breath that you've been holding. I know that was really tense, but it's time for a Jeannie Awards staple. We're going to have fun with this next category as we're going to be diving into Best Villain. And here, the nominees are Albert Lord for A Town Called Malice, portrayed by Jason Fleming, Dre in Swarm, portrayed by Dominique Fishback, Elias Mannix in Bodies, portrayed by Stephen Graham, Gracie Arthurton in May December, portrayed by Julianne Moore, Lewis Strauss in Oppenheimer, portrayed by Robert Downey Jr., Magnifico in Wish, voiced by Chris Pine, Oliver Quick in Saltburn, portrayed by Barry Keoghan, Paul Matthews in Dream Scenario, portrayed by Nicolas Cage, Prime Fontaine in They Cloned Tyrone, portrayed by John Boyega, the hero in I'm a Virgo, portrayed by Walton Goggins, the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, portrayed by Chukwudi Awuji, the Patriarchy in Barbie, and Thomas, portrayed by Franz Rogalski in Passages. All of these people suck. I mentioned the Lord family in a town called Malice, and Albert Lord is the patriarch of that family, who is literally the scum of the earth. He literally sucks, okay, because he's one of these guys who used to be a big old gangster back in the day in the 70s and whatnot, and now he has his sons who want to follow in his footsteps, except because he's so insecure, because he's such a measly shadow of a man, he despises and resents his sons for it, and he just makes their lives a living hell. So even though you have this crime family that you shouldn't really feel anything for, you do still feel empathy for the sons because their father is just a menace. I mean, the show is called A Town Called Malice. Their father is the malice. The father is the most malicious man, or one of the most malicious men ever put to screen, and you have to see the way that he treats his family to fully understand, but trust me when I say he sucks. And the same thing can be said for Elias Mannix, who literally got away with crimes against humanity across decades. If you have seen Netflix's Bodies, then you know, first of all, how insane that whole series is. This limited series crosses paths with all different genres and subgenres. It's a historical drama. It's kind of a romance sometimes. It's also a sci-fi thriller and a whodunit. It's a time-traveling, genre-redefining series that kind of breaches all kinds of boundaries, but it was super compelling. Again, one of my favorite binges of the entire year, even though the very end doesn't always quite make a lot of sense, but I still had a grand old time. And at the center of it all, we had Elias Mannix as one of the best or worst villains of the entire year. Now, some of these villains I've already discussed at length, like Louis Strauss from Oppenheimer, Magnifico from Wish, and of course the High Evolutionary from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where we had a return of just an uncomplicated, undeniably evil villain in a Marvel film, and it was delicious. It was absolutely incredible, and Chikrudi Awuji gave a phenomenal performance as this evil bad guy. Some of the sequences in this film literally brought me to tears, and not only when I was watching the film twice in cinemas, but also as I sat here reviewing it. Okay, so this really hit a nerve with me, and it's all because of the High Evolutionary's dastardly schemes. And so it was really refreshing to see a character who was just unequivocally evil. He's just like, he's a bad guy. He destroyed an entire planet that he created. Like, he is the scum of not just the earth but the galaxy. And honestly, he was so close to winning this award. And when I noted him down earlier this year, I thought he would get away with it. You know, he could have gone away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids. But in actuality, those meddling kids aren't kids at all, because the award for Best Villain in a Film or Television Series for 2023 is actually the white men in Oklahoma in the 1920s from Killers of the Flower. I'm sorry, but no one can come close to their evil. I'm sorry, not even all of these incredibly malicious folks on this list can come close to the evil of these white men. Because what do you mean you're killing off wealthy Native Americans in an act of vengeance and spite because they couldn't handle the fact that they had gotten all this wealth from their land after they had been kicked out of their original lands, after they had been moved around in their own native land? They happened to stumble across, you know, oil on their land, and finally that brought them good fortunes. But these white men couldn't handle it. These white people in Oklahoma in the 1920s could not handle it. They were frothing at the mouth, trying to find a way to leech off of this wealth. And so they sought to marry these Native American women to steal the wealth from under them, and also just straight up killed a bunch of folks. Just straight up wiped out entire lineages. And these crimes were underreported, they were dismissed, they were ignored by the US government because the US government did not consider these Native Americans to be human. They didn't hold their lives with the same regard as they did with white folks in America. Just as they were treating the black people, they were treating the Native Americans as well, as nothing, as subhuman. And it took the strength and the courage and the diligence of some Native Americans to head straight on over to Washington, D.C. to see if this government could help their people. And the only reason why they finally did so is because they had this new fledgling of an organization called the FBI that they actually wanted to test out to see if it could work. Because the FBI had been floundering. The FBI had not found a position in the United States institutions, and so they wanted to have a test drive to see if this Federal Bureau of Investigation, or I think it was just called the Bureau at the time, was actually capable of functioning. And so they treated these Native Americans as the guinea pigs, essentially. They're not the heroes that you think they are, especially in light of watching this film. It was all self-serving, because that's what the US government is, because that's what many of these governments are. It's self-serving. But let's not forget the evil, the true evil undercurrent of this film. And that is what these white people were prepared to do to these Native Americans to leech off of the wealth that they had found after generations on generations of oppression within their own native lands. And that evil is perfectly encapsulated by the characters portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. Okay guys, so now we are getting into the final 3 categories of the night. I can't believe the Jeannie Awards for 2023 are almost wrapping up. Thank you guys for holding on with me for this long, but you're about to be rewarded because this is the very first category that you guys chose for me to cover in this year's Jeannie Awards. And this was a very popular category in the poll, so I'm sure many of you just want me to get right to it. And it is in fact the worst film or television series. The nominees here are Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Asteroid City, Ghosted, Joyride, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, Secret Invasion, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, and You People. Boo! Boo! Stinky, smelly content. All of these sucked. You know, I actually don't have many reviews. Actually, I reviewed quite a few of the. Oh, I lost several times this year. I've actually reviewed quite a few of these on this list, and it's mostly because quite a few are actually Marvel projects. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. You don't just have one, but you have 2 Marvel projects in here with Ant-Man Quantumania and Secret Invasion. And I also happen to have a review of Ghosted by Apple TV+, a rare miss for Apple TV+, which usually produces gold that goes unnoticed, but this time around it produced crap that was very much noticed, okay, and very much mocked throughout the internet. Now, just as Marvel unfortunately produced some slop throughout 2023, as did DC, and no shade, but like that's more expected, right? Okay, that's less shocking, okay? But The Flash, honestly, The Flash was the top contender for this category. As soon as I saw you guys vote for this category to be featured on this year's Jeannie Awards, I was like, oh, I know who's gonna win. I know who's gonna win. But little did I know it would have some tough competition, okay? But like I said, I've got a review of The Flash. I'm not kind to it. Despised that film and despised how people were lying about how good it was. So you can check that out. And Shazam! Fury of the Gods, no one even bothered to lie about how good this film was. And speaking of nothing movies, we also have a couple of like comedies and rom-coms. Like for instance, Netflix's You People, starring Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill, which was just the definition of cringe. And it wasn't even cringe comedy, it was just oh, and I remember watching the trailer. I was like, oh, this could be something, this could be fun. But the film itself just left me crawling on the floor in anguish and in cringe. Like, You People is just like, no, oh god. And then lastly, before we reveal who has the honor, or rather dishonor, of being the winner of this category, we need to touch on Asteroid City. I think Wes Anderson needs to take a break. Now, I know this is a polarizing one, okay? I know some people loved Asteroid City and some people despised it. I've seen it on both lists of both, you know, best of and worst of 2023. So I know this is very polarizing. I land on the worst of, clearly, because it's on this list. The story just did not captivate me at all. Like, the story, it repelled me. It seemed to like... The story seemed to repel me. Like, I literally just could not get invested in this story. And mind you, whilst I was watching this film, I rewound it several times. I was like, I did not catch any of that scene. Let me go let me go back and watch this because I must be missing something. And I remember I watched The French Dispatch, in cinemas, and I didn't love that film, but there were elements of it that I enjoyed. So I was like holding out hope that something could be salvaged from Asteroid City. But ultimately, I just could not get myself to care. Try as I might, I just could not get myself to care. And so ultimately, I was just left looking at the typical Wes Anderson aesthetic and being like, yeah, that's cool. But even that has kind of grown stale. And then in the very end, you mind if I spoil this? In the very end, it's like aliens. Very interesting story and plot that I just could not get invested in. And honestly, across the board when it comes to Wes Anderson films, even though I enjoy the aesthetic, and I did find it funny how TikTok made it a whole trend for like a good month there earlier this year, and apparently Wes Anderson was annoyed by that, which I found hilarious. Let people have fun. Anyway, but even though his aesthetic is pretty iconic, I scarcely get invested in any of his characters. And you could literally put a gun to my head and tell me to name like an iconic Wes Anderson character, and I would not be able to. Maybe a few of the characters from Grand Budapest, which remains my favorite Wes Anderson film, but otherwise his worlds tend to be more important than the individual characters. And as someone who does get invested in characters first and foremost, that's a struggle for me as a viewer. But okay guys, it is time to reveal the winner of the first ever Worst Film and Television Series Jeannie Award. And the award, the dishonor, goes to The Idol. I had you convinced that it was one of these lot. Not while The Idol exists. Listen, when it comes to my thoughts on The Idol, if I could just organize my thoughts in some bullet points to keep this nice and concise. First of all, my first feeling upon watching the first 2 episodes and then skimming through the rest because I could not believe my eyes, okay, is a sense of vindication, because I have never been into Sam Levinson and I have never been into Euphoria, and I kind of felt like, oh, I was right. Like, it kind of felt like I told you so moment. Now, no disrespect if you're into Euphoria, but I've always taken issue with the way that it depicts teenagehood. I found it to be very like old Hollywood, and by old I mean early 2000s Hollywood, where they tended to overly sexualize teenagers to a gross extent. And perhaps it's because I'm British and I'm used to a different kind of teenage experience in comparison to what is usually depicted in American media, but I've always been turned off. I've always been turned off by that style of, teenage drama or teenage story. And Sam Levinson leans on a lot of those very same tropes that we have seen in other teen dramas and kind of intensifies them and adds a veil of aesthetics and cinematography and blah, blah, blah to make you think that it's more avant-garde than it actually is. But in reality, it's just an intense version of what we've seen for decades when it comes to teenage representation, which I've never gelled with. So that's number one. That's the first thing that I felt upon watching The Idol, is vindication. Number 2 is disgust. And I guess that's the third feeling, right? Like pity. Like, aw, Sam Levinson, you really thought that you did something there. Like, he really thought he had created something like avant-garde. He was pushing boundaries, pushing the limits of what is, acceptable on television or whatever. He really thought he did something. Aww. Well, you didn't. You absolutely didn't. What you created was misogynistic, sexist garbage, okay, with an incoherent story, and to say nothing of the twist ending. And in fact, the biggest twist to come out of The Idol was actually an article. And that article revealed the messiness and the scandal behind The Idol that even rivaled the plot line of the series itself, because it turns out that The Idol was actually developed by a female filmmaker who wanted to tell the story of this young starlet coming up in the industry through a very feminist and female gaze perspective. And then that was bastardized by Sam Levinson Levinson, who took over the project and was given carte blanche because of his hit show Euphoria and how people in the industry think he can't do any wrong. And look how that turned out. You know, Sam Levinson and The Weeknd will pay for their crimes. So guys, we are headed towards the final 2 Genie Awards of the night. But before we get there, it's time for us to take a step back and remember the fallen. This is the In Memoriam for the TV series that we lost in 2023. Now we are down to the last 2 awards of the night, and first one up, we have yet another new category that you guys voted on, and this was a pretty close call actually. So I was so excited to see that you guys ultimately picked Icon of the Year. And here the nominees are Ariel from The Little Mermaid, Barbie from Barbie, Ellie from The Last of Us, Loki from Loki Season 2, Megan from Megan, Marie Moreau for Gen V, Mark Grayson from Invincible Season 2, Miles Morales from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece, and Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So here we have some of the most iconic fictional characters of 2023. I think it's safe to say that if someone asked you what year this was and they would just presented you with this list, you could probably guess that it's 2023. I think this year was pretty great in terms of producing some iconic characters, or even giving us an outing of already iconic characters that was just even more exceptional, as is the case for Loki, who has been iconic for a minute now, but had the most amazing season finale in season 2 that just elevated him to, well, I guess like God status as a character. And what I love about this category as well is, yet again, we are celebrating the best parts of 2023, even if the projects that these characters were included in weren't necessarily my favorite. For instance, when it came to One Piece, it wasn't necessarily for me, okay? I'll be honest. I didn't hate it, but I didn't watch too much of it either. But still, the character of Monkey D. Luffy, he was an exceptional live action adaptation of the famous manga or anime. I think the manga is the book, right? Please don't kill me over this. But he was great. I think he was a really great charismatic lead, and if I wasn't so kind of put off by the world of One Piece, I would have continued watching just for him. And another such project would be Megan. I didn't love the movie Megan. I was reluctant to check it out because it is a horror movie, but I'm glad that I did because it wasn't that scary at all, and I really wanted to see the dance. I really wanted to see the, remember how big the dance was earlier this year? Yes, I wanted to see it in action, and the dance was cute, but it was way too short. But Megan as a character, I mean, she's an icon. She's an icon of 2023 for sure. And I came to really love, you know, the way that she looks, the way that she moves. It's just a really stunning character design, and the performance of the actress underneath all of that costuming was great as well. And then of course we have Rocket Raccoon, who was in a film that I absolutely loved and who had the most amazing character arc ever witnessed in a comic book movie or franchise. I mean, it was just astonishing. The fact that James Gunn decided to center his final Guardians film on Rocket Raccoon was surprising and unexpected, but turned out to be one of the best decisions that he's made across this franchise, because the backstory was just so gut-wrenching. Like, it was so heartbreaking. And again, I cried twice when I saw it in cinemas and when I was sitting down here reviewing the film itself. Like, it just touched my very soul. I think it was such a beautiful story to tell for this really rough and ready character that previously was just so distant and cold and pragmatic. But seeing this tragic, devastating origin that he came from just kind of humanized him, ironically, because he's literally a genetically mutated raccoon. And that moment, that scene where he finally accepts who he is and he calls himself Rocket Raccoon. You're telling me that you didn't cry? You're telling me that you didn't have a single tear traveling down your cheek at that scene? Come on, guys. Rocket Raccoon. Any other year with that kind of storytelling, with that kind of brilliant CGI, mind you, let's not forget that, and the mocap by Sean Gunn, and also the incredible voice performance by Bradley Cooper, any other year he would have won in this category. But it's not any other year. And so on that note, we have the winner of the very first Jeannie Award for Icon of the Year. And the award goes to Barbie. Of course the award goes to Barbie. Was there ever any doubt? 2023 was Barbie's world and we were all just living in it. And finally, we have the last award for the Jeannie Awards of 2023. I cannot believe that time has flown by so quickly, but we've come to the end of the awards with this final category, and here it is, the Breakout Trends of 2023. This is the category where we highlight and celebrate the trends that permeated through pop culture throughout the year. Starting us off with a smaller trend that was very much appreciated by me, and that was Afro-Surrealism. As I mentioned previously, we had quite a few incredible and also incredibly bizarre Afro-Surrealist pieces from Black filmmakers, and those included I'm a Virgo by Boots Riley, who is no stranger to Afro-Surrealism. If you watch Sorry to Bother You, you know exactly what I'm talking about, as well as Swarm and They Cloned Tyrone. Like I said, this is a relatively small little pocket of pop culture, but I wanted to highlight it because it is something that I really love to see from Black filmmakers, and we had quite a few adventurous okay, and ambitious examples of the genre this year. And then next up, I mean, Barbenheimer. Next up, we had yet another small but significant trend in entertainment with business behind the scenes, with films like Blackberry, Tetris, Air, and Flaming Hot exploring some behind the scenes dealings of some of the most popular brands and products. Now, next up, we have a trend that truly broke my heart. This was a trend that I saw coming very early on in the year, and unfortunately, I was proven right time and time again. And that was good films flopping at the box office. Just flopping at the box office, where you had Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Mission Impossible 7, which was yet another victim of the Barbenheimer bomb, if I can say so. Gran Turismo, Hunger Games 5 even caught a stray. That film deserved way more than just 300 mil worldwide. The Marvels and The Creator. And listen, even though you might be triggered by some of these these films, and you may not think that they're all perfect. You can't deny that a lot of these films vastly underperformed this year, when in other years they may have done reasonably well. So this year was brutal at the box office, and it seems to reflect the trends that people have when it comes to their theatre going experiences. They want a big spectacle, they want a sure thing to check out in the cinemas, and these days there are very few sure things to rely upon. Even comic book movies are struggling right now because there seems to have been too many flops and too many failures for the average film goer to want to check them out on a whim. So the box office have been struggling post-pandemic anyways, but this year was particularly brutal, even to films that had done their job and had been actually pretty good. Next trend of the year, we had the year of biopics, where let me take a breather for this one. We had Oppenheimer, Maestro, Ferrari, Napoleon, Priscilla, Chevalier, Rustin, The Iron Claw, The Boys in the Boat, and Naiad, to name a few. And so now it's time to announce the winner of the Breakout Trend of 2023 category, the very last Jeannie Award of the night. And the award goes to... Hollywood is on strike. Yes, everyone, put down your pens, put down your scripts, because a huge chunk of Hollywood went on strike in 2023. One of the biggest strikes that we have seen in the industry in decades. And it was remarkable because not only did we have the writers go on strike, but we also had actors going on strike as well, basically creating a standstill in the industry. And this all came up because of issues such as residuals not being paid, also writers being super constrained and having these toxic work environments and these mini writing rooms that have all come out of the streaming era that Hollywood is experiencing. All of these poor practices and cutting corners that the studios have been doing that have whittled away the benefits and the money that the writers have been entitled to do their jobs properly, making the industry just a hellhole to work in for these creatives. So yeah, they had the right to go on strike, and they took the opportunity to negotiate better terms for themselves to work in this industry, and hopefully set a good precedent for future creatives, future writers and actors to come. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for the 2023 Jeannie Awards. We did it. I can't believe it. It's done. But thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure to do. I know it's going to be hard to edit, but I hope you guys enjoyed this year's Jeannie Awards. I look forward to seeing all of your comments and all of your predictions for who could win and who should have won for the Jeannie Awards down in the comments below. But more than anything, guys, I'm so grateful that you joined me for this video, and not just this video, but all the videos that I posted throughout the year. It's been a tough year for many reasons, but it's just such a joy to be able to post videos on this channel and engage with you guys in this tiny little community on YouTube. It's one of the best parts of my day, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for joining me on the celebration of this community, and looking forward to the next year coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.